I love it. Well, let's get started. We're going to be talking about conversion, and we've got some amazing, great things to talk about. Brian and I are going to take two different approaches on this. And of course, my co-host on this is Dan Corkill. He runs Follow Up Boss. He created Follow Up Boss. His whole team out there does amazing. So if you haven't checked them out, go ahead and check them out. It's followupboss.com. Probably the easiest CRM to use out there, most user-friendly, and it'll scale with you. Dan, I think I've been with you like 1 year after you created this, which was 2011. You created it. I always forget. All right.
We got started in 2011. Yeah.
And I jumped in 12, and I was just starting to grow my team bigger then. And I mean, geez, we're pretty awesome and massive now, and you've grown with us. So that's the cool thing about Follow Up Boss. You can start small and just grow with it. Brian, how long have you been with Follow Up Boss, buddy?
2014. So I worked, I know you guys used to work closely with Curator, and I signed up for Curator. And so, you know, shout out to those guys for getting me connected with you. And it's been a great thing for us. I think for me, if it wasn't for Follow Up Boss, I'm not sure if I would have started a team in 2014, but it made it so easy and simple for me to take the leads. You know, I was doing that manual lead thing every once in a while. Here, you want a lead? Here, you want a lead? Obviously, we know that you can maybe get away with that for one or two people, but if you want to actually have a scalable business, you need a way to distribute those leads in a way that's simple, easy, and intuitive. And so that's honestly, I give Dan's system a lot of credit for me being able to start a team. I'm not sure if I would have if I didn't have it. So.
I love that. What took you so damn long? 2014? Damn, bro, come on.
Yeah, well, I try and be an early adopter nowadays, but I guess back then I was.
That's true. Very true.
It took me a while to catch on.
I want to start this off and talk about the process that most people are used to, and that's when it comes to whatever CRM you're using, the process of inputting all of your incoming leads, whether they're online leads. At the time when we were doing a lot of open houses, open house leads, past clients, your sphere, or mailers, or anybody that's really coming in and that you're putting into your CRM, you've got to have a process to follow up, and you've got to have a process to nurture. And so part of our team is still hand dialing, still picking up the phone and nurturing a lot of their database, because my team's so large, we've split up our databases between our team members. Now, it doesn't mean we don't do what Brian is going to talk about, because we do have a process for that auto nurturing, and it's awesome. But I want to show you what we do on the hand dialing part and the nurturing, because it works as well. And so I have two great examples that I'll start off with, and I'm not sure if I've told this one. Dan and Brian, you both heard about the Matthew Perry one last time, right?
Yep.
Or maybe you haven't. But so there's another one. So we're doing really well, obviously, right now, and we're out of the Malibu, California area, so we do get a lot of people purchasing at a high price point. And so let me rewind. August 2nd. 2020, that's not even a long time ago. We get an online lead coming through from pay-per-click, goes right into Follow Up Boss. And as soon as it goes into Follow Up Boss, we have our automated systems pick it up, which means that they're getting a phone call through our automated systems, like a voicemail drop. They're getting a text saying, hey, I noticed you visited our website through Google, wanted to see how we can help you out. But at the same time, we still have that human touch, and we do have our agents picking up the phone and dialing through Follow Up Boss, because it has a dialer. So in this case, the agent was Mark Rader. Mark Rader picked up the phone through Follow Up Boss, clicked dial, it started to dial, and they picked up. And it was a lady on the other end, and she said, well, thanks, but I'm just looking, which is the same thing we get all the time. Like, I'm just looking. And so he said, that's not a problem. What are you just looking for? Right? And so she said, well, you know, if when the time comes next year, maybe we're looking to possibly buy a home in Malibu on the beach. He's like, okay, what are you looking for? And when would that be? She gave him the stats. It wasn't a long call, 5-7 minutes. I checked. And she said, this is what we're looking for. It needs to be on the beach. Price range around 5-7, around that 5-7 million, right? And so he sets it up, sends her some properties, and then as soon as she's looking, he gets notified on Follow Up Boss. So he can see what she's looking at, and it's all tracking it on Follow Up Boss. Now, our automated systems at that point are shut off because he's in communication with her. If he wasn't, those systems would still be in place, right? And so now he's looking, and then she opens up a few. So instead of waiting and letting her respond back, he goes ahead and says, hey, I saw that you're looking at one. It's kind of creepy, right? But whatever, he did it. He said, I saw that you're looking at this one. Do you guys want to take a look at it this weekend? No response. He picks up the phone and calls her, right? This is what I'm talking about, Brian, Dan. Picking up the phone, calling her. She picks up. She says, yes, I kind of do like it. Do you have some availability this weekend? And he says, yeah, let's go see it. I'll book it. It's a $10 million home. She goes and sees it. She likes it, calls her husband in New York. He flies down the next week. So now it's 2 weeks from inception, right? The lead coming through. He comes down, takes a look at it, does not like it. He's like, this isn't the home for us. The agent on the other side, the listing agent, hears that and says, I've got a pocket listing that you might like 2 blocks down. Would you like to see that one? And my agent says, of course, it fits what they're looking for. Goes and sees it. They love it. 10.5 million, all cash offer, gets accepted the next day. So from the point of the lead coming through on Follow Up Boss to us going into escrow or under contract, whatever you want to call it, it was about a 2.5 week process. This is a Google pay-per-click lead going into Follow Up Boss with the right process of being able to follow up through our systems and actually picking up the phone and calling, right? And I think a lot of us forget that this is a high touch game. And that's why I love what Brian is going to show you. It does the same thing, but on the other side of this, which is more automated, right? And I think the combination of both is the key, but more importantly, it's the tools that you're using that make this possible that allows you to scale this bigger, right? Because this isn't the only story I've told to you with a multi-million-dollar online lead that goes through Follow Up Boss. But that's a process, and we just closed that one. It was a 60-day escrow, and we just closed it 2 weeks ago. And that changed the perspective of some agents on our team and saying, wow, this is awesome. You are right. I should be using Follow Up Boss like this. I understand. I should be calling people, right? And so I just wanted to share that to start off, Brian. What do you think, man?
I think it's amazing. And here's the thing that I think people miss in our industry, right? So any of you baseball fans out there will understand this. If you hit 300, in other words, basically 1 out of every 3 attempts in you get up to the bat, you're going to be a Hall of Famer. Here's the reality in our business. 5 out of 100. If you knock the 5 out of 100 out of the park, in other words, you get 100 leads and you close 5 of them, you're a Hall of Famer. So we need to understand that this, and I hate this, I prefer to talk to 5 people and get 5 sales, but that's just not the reality of the world that we live in. Everything we do is about nurturing and follow-up. There's not an agent in America who can't handle the Zillow call that says, hey, I want to go look at 123 Main Street in 2 hours. We can all handle that. That is not a skill set we need to train on. But what we need to train on is how to take a system and develop it long-term. And think about that. If you're an agent who's closing 5 transactions a month, that's 60 a year. Even in a market like where I work in one market where that's $200,000, average sales price, you're still making a very, very, very good living. So it's all about systematizing things. And I didn't count the number of times as you were talking about that, but approximately how many contacts attempts did you get before you got to that people? I think I heard 6 or 7. Does that sound realistic?
Yeah, it was a combination because they didn't respond the first few times, right? And even the first call, she didn't pick up. It's when he started seeing her look at properties on Follow Up Boss, right? then he's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to pick up the phone because she hasn't responded to texts, emails, and the automation, right?
Yeah. And here's for those of you who use a system that does this. I know you mentioned Ylopo specifically, and it integrates extremely well with Follow Up Boss. What I do, if someone looks at a property a whole bunch of times, I send them the property, and I know that sometimes I'm going to get busted on that, but I'll text them that property, say, hey, Tristan, this looks like a property you might be interested in. Of course, I know they're interested, and I saw they looked at it 17 times. So it's a little more subtle than the stalking approach that Tristan's agent took of, hey, I saw you looked at this property. Because again, the wrong person is going to be offended by that. Be very careful with that technique, because why are you cyber stalking me? And then now they unsubscribe and do that. So it worked out for Mark in this situation, but be careful, be subtle about that. And, my subtle approach is, hey, I thought you might like this property. Well, of course, wow, that's amazing. I was just looking at that. That's what you're looking for in that scenario. And you can do that with any CRM. I mean, with any, front-end IDX site, you can send people stuff. I prefer Ylopo because I can text them that link and then it tracks back to my site. I don't know how every other IDX works, but I'm pretty sure you can send stuff to people. So, do that and do that. And so here's the word I want to use for everybody who's listening. It's and. And what I mean by that is what Tristan is talking about is automation and personal contact. At some point in time, I'm actually going to have a conversation with this person on the phone and in person, more than likely. I'm not saying that you can't do 100% virtual, but it's a little bit unrealistic to do 100% virtual all the time. It's just at some point in time, we've got to, do something on our end. So really the purpose of automation to me is to get me face-to-face as quickly as possible.
Mm. That's a good point, because this is a relationship business, man. And that relationship, that has to be at some point, you have to talk to somebody and then you have to meet with them. Most of the time, I mean, we've had transactions where we talk to them, but we never meet them and we close, right?
Yes.
So
yes. It's not a scalable model is what my point was. Yeah, it's going to happen a couple times a year. Like I had a guy who's on my team, his first 5 deals, he didn't meet them until after closing. It was just a weird anomalous thing. It happened, a whole bunch of people all moving from California actually ended up buying a house sight unseen. And that does happen, but that's not a way to scale your business. So yeah.
I agree, dude. And Meg has her hand raised. I think she might have a question. What's up, Meg? You're I see you often in the Follow Up Boss success community. So thanks for being on here. I appreciate that. If you have a question, go ahead and drop it into the chat box or into the question section, or just type it into the Facebook community. I have like 6 different windows open, so I'm seeing everything going on. Dan, do you have anything to add on that human part of it before Brian transitions over to call action?
Yeah, I know something some people talk about a bit is like just thinking of people as people instead of as leads, which we refer to them as. And yeah, I think it's also just knowing that some people do want to make a move right away, and so if you're not making that consistent follow-up attempt, I love that your agent was using multiple channels. I mean, for sure, like there are people that there's lots of those stats about how quickly people give up. And if he had given up at any point there, right, he would have not got that deal, which I'm sure was a great, payday for him. So yeah, I mean, you've got to just keep at it. And yeah, I think sharing those examples with your team is really powerful, because then you can, like you mentioned, Tristan, then everyone else is like, oh, I get it. I really need to start, doing some of this follow up as well. I'm getting similar leads. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. And on that, because there's there's 2 questions. One is by Christopher. Is asking specifically about the features and benefits in comparison to Commissions Inc. That's one. And then number 2, which will kind of answer it as well if we answer this one, is Yazan saying, I'm not sure I understand right. Does Follow Up Boss have the feature of notifying agents that are viewing properties? And I think, Brian, I'll go first and then you chime in, or Dan. But I had Commissions Inc. I had Commissions Inc. for a very long time. And I finally decided to let it go. And the one thing I love about Follow Up Boss, why I kept it for so long, is the APIs that you can connect to. Absolutely. If it doesn't connect to something, you just hit up Dan's team and they'll be like, hold on, just give me a minute. And they'll probably connect to it the next day. Yeah. So the ability for Follow Up Boss to connect to that any technology that you see out there in the real estate world is fairly easy. And if it doesn't do it directly, it uses companies like Zapier to be able to connect to them. And so, Yazan, when I say that my agents were able to see what's going on with what they're viewing, it's because they have a direct connection to YLOPO, who I use as the IDX and the lead generation arm of this. And so anytime any client is seeing any property, we get notified on Follow Up Boss. And so we get to see everything, literally every single thing that they're doing, whether they've shared a property, favorited, or seen it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And so, Christopher, in the same way, the thing that separates Follow Up Boss with Sync, because I did love Sync, but it didn't change through the times. And so that was a big challenge to see it not change because I liked it so much, right? And so with that, the ability for a company like Follow Up Boss to merge with a YLOPO, you're able to do dynamic ads for real estate that actually work, right? Where it's targeting our whole past client database and following them along, and also notifying me when things get kind of hot with a client saying, "Ooh, I've seen this property 5 times." I get no notification, and it turns on an artificial intelligence that says, "Hey, do you have any questions about that home since you've seen it a whole bunch of times?" And it does that in a very nice way, not like I said it right now. So, but that's a little bit of what it does. Brian, anything I missed?
I don't think so. Let me just add onto this. So are we notifying? Ultimately, the API, the connection between, Follow Up Boss and whatever front end site you happen to be using, it all flows into it. So do I get notifications? Yeah. So for example, in YLOPO, it's Y priority alerts. There's different things that trigger those Y priority alerts, and I get notified. And we can actually set up automation. We've actually done this where we have an automation, a Y priority alert comes in, and we automate it because we understand that our agents aren't sitting in front of their computers 24 hours a day waiting for that next lead to come in. It's just an unrealistic activity. So we automate it now, and we put that person on a drip based on a Y priority alert. That's one thing that you can do. If you don't want to do the automated part, it'll notify you and get somebody to actually send them a text message, send them a voicemail, call them, whatever the case may be. But yeah, because at the end of the day, when, I don't know how big Tristan's database is, but mine's pretty darn big. So realistically, I can't monitor that 24/7. But so who do I call? Who do I reach out to? Who do I text? Well, I let the system tell me, oh, these people were on your website, so I can sort by that. Or these people did this activity. They looked at this one house 17 times. That sounds like an exaggeration, but I get that quite often when they just went and they just kept looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. So all too often, who do we call? There's 50,000 people in my database. I can't call them all every day. That's an unrealistic expectation. I have to prioritize. So I'm going to prioritize based on people's activity, and Follow Up Boss is a very simple way for me to do that.
Yeah, I love that. You simplify that too. Dan, anything we missed that sets a company like Follow Up Boss and Sync apart? And then we'll head into call action.
No, I think you covered it. I mean, they do more of the all-in-one model where they're doing the website and the lead gen, and Follow Up Boss is just, doing the follow-up, the CRM part of it. And so, like Tristan already kind of covered, that just means we can connect with everything easier, and that's our focus versus, trying to do everything well. We just focus on being best of breed at that. And, I think one of the feedback, maybe it was Brian who mentioned on just another webinar, is like, it's just easier to train people on Follow Up Boss because it's just, as you grow your team, you're just adding agents. The system's really simple versus trying to train them on like listing alerts and all these things at the same time. So I think you guys covered it really well.
Okay.
Simple is better, guys. At the end of the day, this is what I don't know why we're all bashing on Commissions Inc., but it's a party apparently. So the difference was I used to spend approximately 12 hours training my agents to use Commissions Inc. I spend about 45 minutes training my agents to use Follow Up Boss. Understand this, the average real estate agent is 48 years and old in this country, can barely spell tech. So they're not interested in that. They want to go out and sell houses. They don't want to become a tech guru. So if we make it simple and easy for them to use, then they'll use it. If we make it complex, Tristan and I are kind of geeks, so we get excited. Oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. But then you give it to somebody who's not a tech nerd, and you're like, well, I don't understand how to work this. And what do? They just do nothing. So simple and intuitive is so important, in my opinion.
Dude, yes, exactly. All right, so let's transition in. Oh, Yuri, does Follow Up Boss have content to send, or do agents have to create it? Yeah, actually, Follow Up Boss has a lot of content you can just set to email and to automate. So as soon as leads come through, or to do whatever you want. Dan, I know I'm working on a few things that I'm putting directly into Follow Up Boss. One of them is that 3-year nurturing for your sphere. So that's a really nice one. I know Brian has a couple too. So it's all built in.
And we have a group, right? So I guarantee you go into our group and say, into Follow Up Boss community, and say, I need a drip that does this. Probably 25 people will reach out to you. I mean, it's a collaborative group. It's a great group of people. Unless someone doesn't have it, which I doubt, they'll give it to you. I'm not seeing a single person say, nope, that's mine, and holding it back. So it's very collaborative, very open. And I think that's an amazing part about the system.
All right. So let's get into how you're using this and what we should be as agents looking to do, because I think this is a cool part, and you may lose some people, but you won't lose some people in at least the idea behind it, right?
Yeah, because I'm not going to go into all the nuances of it. I'm sure we can help people with the nuances as we move forward. But to me, it's very interesting as we move forward with what's happening in 2020. And let's just go back to 2015. I don't know the actual statistics off the top of my head, but I'm going to say the answer rate at best is half of what it was 5 years ago. Does that sound reasonable to you, Tristan, Dan?
Yep.
So what does that mean? That means that, and there's a whole bunch of reasons behind that. Number one, millennials as a whole and people younger, they don't talk on the phone as much as people like me who are in our 40s. That's just a fact. So getting somebody on the phone is significantly harder. Here's the other thing that screwed up our business. This thing here, and I love my iPhone, don't get me wrong, but if Tristan calls me and I don't like him, I hit one button and I never get a call from him again. So keep that in mind too. If you're calling and you're wondering why did Dan never pick up the phone? Well, because he got sick of you and blocked you. So it's a reality in 2020 that didn't exist 5 years ago. I'm not saying you couldn't block somebody 5 years ago, but Apple has made it very, very, very easy to do it. Here's another thing that's happening in 2020. We are sick and tired of getting robocalls. Like how many robocalls do we get a day? I don't even know. This week, I've had 5 phone calls at a minimum for a insurance policy, what's not insurance, a warranty on my car that I don't even own anymore. Like literally, we're calling you about your 2012 such and such. I'm like, I sold that 3 years ago. So we're dealing with all this stuff. I'd say that as a background to this. Calling is less effective than it was 5 years ago. So what are we switching to? So our team is really focused on text. Here's the problem with text though. I can't sell on text as well as I can. There's no intonation. It's just words, right? So the other thing that we've done is we put GIFs in now. So it's an interesting thing. We're actually working on doing an experiment. Do GIFs work with all age groups? If I've got, somebody waving and doing something goofy, if you're 55 years old, do you think that's stupid or do you think it's funny? So that's something interesting we're going to be looking into. That's a different webinar in the future. But here's what I do now. Lead comes in, I'm immediately putting that on automation. So in other words, they're immediately getting text messages. They're immediately getting GIFs. They're immediately doing that. How do we do that? There's an integration with a company called Call Action. You can do voicemail drops. You can do text messages. You can do video text messages. All this stuff completely integrates right inside of it. How do I do it? It's built right inside of Follow Up Boss. I click one button and put the person on drip. It's literally that easy. You can actually automate a little bit further if you're kind of a Zapier nerd like me. So we can actually, when a lead comes in, we can throw a tag on it that creates a zap, and that zap will start that in case, once again, I don't always sit in front of my computer 24 hours a day. But 100% of the time, I want people to get a communication that makes sense for us right there. So.
That makes sense.
Any general questions, thoughts about how all that works? Or
I think the biggest challenge for most agents is, and I think it was Yuri who brought it up, or who was that earlier? Let me check. Because it's a very, Yuri brought it up. She says, does Follow Up Boss have content to send, or do we have to create it? That's a challenge for most agents, because either they just don't have the time to create this content, so they rely on companies like Follow Up Boss, and they rely on agents like us, Brian, to be able to do that from the experience that we have, right?
Absolutely.
And when you combine both, I think that's the magic, because I've spent like the last 9 to 10 years just creating content for this industry, and because of it, it's propelled me to a whole different level, right? And you've done the same thing, and I think the more we give, it's just a big needed thing. So that's why I love doing both. And what you're talking about right now, which is a set it and forget it type thing, it's a perfect thing.
And let's talk about some old leads for a while. So again, I don't know, everybody on this call does not have a 50,000 person database like I do, like Tristan does. But you know what? We use a program inside Call Action. And where did I get the content from? It came with Call Action. So it's called Revive, and Jesse Bobine, who's the owner of Call Action, developed it. I didn't do anything with it, to be honest, but here's what I did with it. I applied it. And so I take old leads and I literally put them on a Revive drip. You have to record 3 voicemails, and then the rest of it is basically just plug and plug and plug. And how do you record the voicemails? You go into Call Action and you push the Revive button, and there's a phone number. You call that phone number, and then if you're like me, you take 18 attempts and finally are happy with the one that you recorded, or you butcher the script or do whatever. But eventually you get it. You don't have to worry about that because you can record it as many times as you want. I think it would have been funny to watch me record it. I probably said some words that wouldn't be appropriate for this webinar a couple of times because I screwed one up. But anyway, long story short is now I take Revive and I'll take 100 leads and put it on Revive. The last time I ran it, I got a 58% contact rate on leads that were 6 to 12 months old. So I want you guys to think about that. Now, that's not 100% of those people going, yeah, I want to go look at a house this weekend. But what it is every single one of those responding to them. So now I can narrow down what I want to do with them. Oh, we're not ready. We bought a house last week. Okay, I don't need to deal with you anymore. Or, whatever the case may be. But think about this. If you have 500 leads in your CRM, my guess is you don't know what 75 to 80% of those people are doing, when they're doing it, why they're doing it. We have to, again, come back to, who do I call? We don't have unlimited time, right? Who should I be making my phone calls to? How do I go from having a 5% answer rate to a 25% answer rate? You use that technology to start that and get people to raise their hands. And again, sometimes it's F off, leave me alone. I hate you. I hate people like you, whatever. I've got thick skin. If you're in this business, you better have thick skin. But you know what? Out of those 58 responses, 2 people went and bought houses. So is that worth it to me? And how long did it take me to do that? Not very long. It took me a grand total of about 30 minutes of setup. And then here's the rub though. You have to pay attention, because what's going to happen is you're going to get notifications from Follow Up Boss that says, oh, you got a lead that did this. Okay, now I have to go and respond to them. Because if I say something like, would you like to jump on a phone call in 45 minutes? And they say yes, and then you don't answer, that doesn't work either. So no matter how great automation is, at the end of the day, guys, we're the ones who pull the trigger. We're the ones who have the conversations. We're the ones who have to do the work. Automation is meant to enhance and develop relationships, or to start relationships, not to actually develop them and nurture those. You have to just get people to raise their hand. Then you have to go and be a salesperson moving forward.
That's a good point, man. That's a very good point that you make. I think when you set the automation in place, and we learned this early on, once you set that automation in place, and for any reason you don't follow up with how you're supposed to on that automation, like Brian said, hey, can you take a call in 45 minutes, and you forget all about it? That's not good.
At some point, we got to do our job, right? Because here's the thing. And by the way, we don't want it to go where we don't need to do our job, because if it gets to that, they don't need us anymore. So at some point in time, we don't want robots opening doors. We don't want, robots answering phone calls and talking to people. It eliminates us completely. So you want to be a person who follows up. You want that because, again, technology is moving. I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. We'll all be sitting having a different webinar but nonetheless, our job is to still connect and build relationships. And the second that we lose that idea, we're done.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. And I think combining that with automation that's more authentic, I'm going to show you something that I'm always tweaking. And Dan and I are in the process of putting the process into Follow Up Boss. Tell me when you can see my screen, because I never know if you can see the actual screen. It says 3-year nurture sphere.
Yep.
Good. All right, cool. Let me zoom in. So what we've got here is, this is specifically, here, I'm just going to read, a group of people that know you by name, who can identify you in a crowd and who have not purchased a home from you, right? So don't place these for online lead drips. This isn't what it's designed for. This is designed for a 3-year nurture, 34 touches in 3 years, okay? Now, the idea behind it, I want to show you what I do, just in case you're thinking, well, how do I do this? How do I start? I typically just outline what this looks like on a simple outline, right? Day 1, day 25, what goes out. And the cool thing is all of this integrates with Follow Up Boss easily, right? Voicemail, text, video text, email. I outline this so that it's good visually for me. And then I start it and I show you exactly what it is that you need to do, right? And I put this in here, Brian, you know this, because people get a little finicky. They're like, whoa, you misspelled something. I'm like, look, I'm giving this to you for free. I may have misspelled a few things, so just kidding.
Well, do you ever misspell anything on purpose?
I do, because it makes it more authentic, right?
Yeah. So if you get 100 text messages, 97 of them have a spelling error? I mean, think about that.
Because you text so fast.
Yeah, you text so fast and you have weird words and everything else. It's authentic, believe it or not. So if you're complaining because something's not professional enough, it's 2020. That's not how we do business anymore.
Yeah, good point, man. Good point. And I want to show you just a little bit of the type of communication this is, so people can get an idea of what they should be doing. All right, so you put somebody in on this. Obviously, it tells you who up here again. 0 minutes in, it's a voicemail drop. And it says, hey, again, sorry I couldn't reach you, but I'll text you. Save this number. It's my other mobile number that I use for work. Have a great day. A lot of people are saying, well, how do you tell people that your cell phone number and your computer number are two different things? Well, it's easy. Don't make a big deal about it, because if you don't make a big deal about it, it's not a big deal. As soon as you do, it is. So that's a good point for you to remember. And then minute 1 through 3, right after that, it's a text. It says, hey, Brian, happy face. For me, I love emojis. I just left you a voicemail. This is my other number. Please save it just in case you have any questions for me. And then it keeps on going. This is an email subject line. Hey, I'm not sure you're into investing in real estate, but this was great. This is the body all written out for you. Day 50, another text. Day 75. You see how I space it out, because this is nurturing. We don't know when these people are going to transact. And this one specifically isn't designed to shut off, because there are some that are designed to shut off as soon as the consumer responds. Well, this one isn't designed that way. It keeps going regardless. So I wanted to share that with you so you guys have a better idea of how this looks, how you're supposed to be thinking longer term when it comes to these leads that you don't usually touch, right?
Yeah, and let's talk about messaging. So how often does your messaging change, Tristan? Mine changes all the time.
Dude, if it didn't, all of my messaging would have gone to hell when COVID hit.
Yeah, there we go. And so, I hear this all the time. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So there's a couple of things. You can take any of the stuff that Tristan does and just kind of copy and tweak into your own voice. Remember, at the end of the day, and this is one of the things I think people do, we have a lot of perfectionists. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So we have a lot of people who just say, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to do it well enough. I promise you, you send out a drip that has, text message, all this stuff in it, and it's not very good. It's 100% better than the one you didn't set up. You got this perfect one that you're working on for 6 months. By the time you're done with it, your messaging is old and out of date. You never sent it. I've closed 10 of your leads because you didn't bother to put them on automation. My point is this: there's a perfect way to do something, but just do it. And you know what? If you're scared of automation, you don't want to do automation. One of the great things about Follow Up Boss, you can build out long-term plans that give you this. Like we used to do this all the time. Day one is a phone call. Day two, you send this text message, this exact text message that I wrote up for you. Where does it show up? It shows up in the corner of my task. It's there. I can literally cut and paste it and drop it into the text box because Follow Up Boss has that feature. Day three, I'm supposed to make a phone call. What's the script? Well, guess what? It's right in there. All this stuff can be done for you. If you're a person who wants to do this manually, you don't want to get into automation, all of that stuff can still be set up and it can tell you what to do every single day.
Good point, man. Good point. Amy has a question for you, Brian.
Okay.
What's up, Amy?
Hi, Amy.
Do you have call action phone numbers for each agent on the team or no?
So I have 2 teams and both of them are set up differently. On my one team, yes, I do. And the reason that we do is we use call action for some other stuff too. All incoming signed calls go through call action for us. We've got some autoresponders that do that. We use call action for Facebook ads. We use call action for Craigslist ads. So because of that, to distribute to each one of our agents, we need that. That's team 1. Team 2, we have an ISA model. So the ISAs are the only ones who have a call action account and a call action number there because they are nurturing all the leads. And then once we turn them over to the agents, you don't need to necessarily use that automation anymore. And if the person, let's say I give a lead to Tristan and he goes, well, Brian, that was great. I went and showed him a property, but they're 6 months out. Great. I just turn it back over to the ISA and they put them on a drip and they nurture them for 6 months. So it depends on which model you want to use. You can use an individual model where you're just doing it yourself or your ISA is using it, or you can do it on a bigger scale. Obviously, getting every single person a phone number, having a massive account like I have is going to be a little bit more expensive. But here's the thing I'm going to look at. If I get a single closing, that's just one closing from using call action every month, I mean, it pays like gross about 5 times my bill. So, and I'm in a market where I'm talking about a $225,000 average price point. Some of this stuff feels expensive, but take a look at, can I get 1 transaction a month out of it? If the answer is yes, what's the ROI on that? And then if I can get 2, 3, 4, then I don't care what it costs.
That makes sense, dude. I love that. All right, let's see if we've got any questions. Dan, anything you want to add, buddy, on that?
Yeah, just like the tips around just with the text messages, just keep them a bit more friendly and casual, like you would text a friend. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's the same for your emails. Like, so I think even looking at Tristan's one, like, I think the mistake you make is you think you need to write like this corporate looking, like professional email, where it's much better if it's conversational. Like there's questions in there and, it's short. People don't have time to read like a, massive essay. So yeah, I think yours are good examples, Tristan, but if people are doing their own, I think look at stuff like that, keep it conversational, and that's going to make a big difference to like how many people respond.
Dan, really quick here before we wrap up in about 7 or so minutes, can you show us the back end really quick of Follow Up Boss where we can go and just pick campaigns so we don't really have to think about creating them so people can see how easy that is?
Yeah,
I've got Brian's account open.
Okay, let me copy all those phone numbers.
Go for it.
Brian, who is your best client on here?
They're all hidden. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so here's actually what Brian was describing before we jump into that, Tristan. Like, here's what Brian was describing with call action is one of our integrations, and they can do like drip texting, drip voicemails. And so we integrate with a lot of those systems like the Ylopo Rhea system, call action. Rather than trying to build all those things ourselves, we're sharing data back and forth so that like, Brian can then have this easily triggered, or Tristan can have it triggered like when someone comes back to his website, like I was describing before. So yeah, it's all like, the cool thing about this is the actual integration is built inside Follow Up Boss. And it can actually just be used by agents directly here, which makes it really easy for them versus like needing to log into call action and go and do something. So yeah, we're pretty excited to have that. And, you know, I think that sort of, it's something a little bit unique. A lot of other systems, or even the way it used to work in follow ups before, was like, oh, this will all work by tags and so on. But this is really just a lot easier for agents to choose from that drop down. Like Brian was saying, he's got an agent for each number, for each person. And then you can just really just click that button and start it, basically.
So easy. I love that, dude. And then, so if people want to, let's just say they just finished talking to somebody and they want to put them on an automated type of smart plan, what would that look like?
Yeah, so there's the direct ones in Follow Up Boss, which is the action plans. Brian's actually got his one here, so he's got like the Zillow action plan.
Nice.
And what you can pull that up and see like the tasks that are in there, the emails that would go out. And then if you wanted to do some of the call action stuff we've been talking about, again, like you would just, it's a one click to add it there. It's also possible to do some automation with that. So you don't even have to like, you know, be clicking something to put on a call action campaign. But I don't know, Brian, like if you want to speak a little bit, like when would you do it first? When wouldn't you? I like that you guys were mentioning before, you're also using it for like this revive scenario. So
yeah, I'll tell you what, let me share my screen and it'll be a little bit easier for me to talk about that real quick. So, you know, this is a Follow Up Boss account right here. And like, this is a lead that came into us. You can see all the different things that have happened with it. I don't know. So right now I've got it running on this specific drip campaign, and I'll tell you exactly how I did that. So this tag, where is it here? This tag, it says start PPC. So we basically, when the lead comes in, we automatically through automation tag it with this right here. This creates a zap that puts it on this registration plan over here.
Got it.
So this person never even did that. Now, one of the things, again, we talked about YLOPO, so I used YLOPO, so then Raya started talking to him as well. So by the way, there's a concept out there that people believe that, oh, I shouldn't contact somebody too many times. Get over that. Because the reality is the minimum expectation is 8 contacts per lead to get it. That's an industry average. That's not my numbers. That's the industry average. You're going to have to reach out to an internet lead 8 times before they actually get contacted. Wow. So do not be afraid of this. And if you notice some language around here, and you can have ISAs do this, you can have assistants do this, but here's the language, Brian's assistant. So people get all, oh my God, they're going to think a million people. No, they got a message from me that said, this is Brian Curtis, and you know, that message. And then they got a message from Brian's assistant. So what does this look like? It looks like I'm somebody who's important. I'm not, but it looks like I'm somebody who's got an assistant. I've got a system. I've got a model. And you guys got to remember this, that agents or the clients out there say, you know, 15 years ago when I started selling general real estate, you got somebody in your car and you were done. Nowadays, they're talking to 10, 15, 20 agents at a time. And if you think that they're not, you're delusional. So you've got to show that you're more professional, you're more organized, you have better follow-up if you want to get more contracts. Otherwise, you're just trying to get lucky. Everything should be a system. And that's what Follow Up Boss is all about for me. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So somebody's asking, does Follow Up Boss have the ability to send video text? The answer is yes, through call action.
Cool. And also through Agent Legend. I mean,
yeah, Agent Legend also does that.
Dan, you're really good friends with Costas, and that's a solid system as well.
Yeah, Agent Legend's good to check out. I think both of those systems have a free trial, by the way. So yeah, you could go to agentlegend.com or callAction.co, I believe it is. We'll put the links probably in the chat. Can you tell us about the video text? Because I know what a video text is, but I'm just curious about like what you're texting, what's in the video, that kind of, like how long is it, that kind of thing.
So a couple of things. So video texting is constrained by, we all use Twilio, all the different things use Twilio. So it's constrained 600 kilobytes, I believe is the max. So what does that mean? That means sometimes you might have to compress something to make sure it stays underneath that. You want to make sure it's 600 kilobytes or less. So when I'm going to send video text out, if I'm going to send them out through Follow Up Boss to multiple people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm going to test it on myself first. I have an account I've got a user inside my account that's me. So I'll send I always test everything on myself. So in case I go out and spend an hour doing something and realize that not a single one went out. So you can actually, send all those things out. What does that look like? I like simple things. Like, here's one of my favorites. It's Thursday. Let's pretend it's Thursday instead of Friday. I love to send this. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. I have time available on Saturday. Are you interested in going and take a look at some houses? I'm sending that to people I've never spoken to, never talked to. Why does that work? It works because they've been following you. You don't even know it. They keep them back to your website. They do this, and they might go, hey, I don't even know you, but tell me more. Or, how'd you get my phone number? Well, you made an inquiry. I do want to go look at a house. It's a numbers game. And here's the great thing about a video text. Realistically, how long does it take to record one? If you're like me, it's going to take 4 or 5 attempts because I'm kind of a perfectionist. But after I've got that 4th or 5th attempt done, then I save it and I send it over and over and over and over again. And it's simple and easy to do that. And there's so much opportunity because remember, your competition is texting and calling. And that's great. Or emailing. Be different. 5 years from now, video texts are going to be so common that they'll be ineffective. But today, most people are scared to death of them. Like, you've got a team, Tristan. Realistically, how many people send video text on a regular basis?
One.
Yeah.
Very true.
I literally tell my team every single week, send out video text, send out video text. And it works. Every time somebody does it, it works. I had a lady who was on my team. She was a 25-year-old young lady. She sent out 53 video texts. By the way, she told us that it took her a grand total of 5 minutes to send out all those video texts. And she got three positive responses of people who wanted to work with her. It's different. It's not boring. People like it.
I love that. And so, guys, I put up a link there for Follow Up Boss as well. And then I know Dan shared Call Action, Agent Legend, just in case you want to check those out. They all work with Follow Up Boss. And Dan, do we have a trial for Follow Up Boss? Is it 7 days or how long is it for?
It's 2 weeks, so 14 days. Yeah, you can get it at the LabCoat link or even just at followupboss.com. Yeah, you don't need a credit card or anything. It's pretty easy to get started. So yeah, check it out.
I love it. Dan, thanks for being on. I love your hat, dude. We need to give away that hat in the Follow Up Boss success community. That's what we need.
This one has like sweat stains and
Not
stuff. I
that
don't think we need this exact one.
That's so good. Meg wants one. Brian, thanks for being on, buddy. Anything you want to add?
Just here's the thing. Dan's giving you a free trial. Give it a whirl. There's a lot of good CRMs out there. I'm not saying that Dan's, Follow Up Boss is the only one, but I will say if you're looking for something that's simple and intuitive and it's going to take your business to the next level, that's what a CRM is all about. So it's worth it. I was talking to these guys before. I'm not sure I would even have a team today if I didn't have Follow Up Boss when I bought it before I had a team, and I realized how easy it was for me to distribute leads, and it literally changed my business. And that's one of the reasons that I've been a customer since 2014.
Love it. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks, Dan. And if you guys are in the Follow Up Boss success community, we'll see you in there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.